Good afternoon, everybody. It's great of you to have us here, parents and survivors, the frontline crew who see it every day, children with disability. I'm very grateful for those who are putting this program together to give us a spot, and hopefully the things I touch on will just show the value that we bring to the equation, which I'll reveal a bit later. Down here, aren't I? Okay, so this is me. I'm a West Australian. Been here all my life, and will continue to be here until the day I die. Not anytime soon. So what I want to talk about here is the power of personal experience, and our experience is over 30 years. 30 years is a hell of a long time. It's actually 31 years now, because Meningitis Centre Australia was born on the 24th of April 1992. And it was, in this photo you've got Professor Fiona Stanley and myself and not ours, but Jen, my wife, and our daughter Ashley. Ash is in that shot, that's a 2002 shot, so we were celebrating our 10th anniversary in 2002. And Ash was 13 and just about to go into a massive operation for a full spinal fusion because of the massive scoliosis she had, which was slowly but surely ruining her life. The beautiful shot about that, thing about that shot is Ash hasn't got a clue what's going on. She's so significantly impaired that she will smile at anything, blow raspberries at most things, sleeps well, eats well, but is totally dependent 24/7. So if you need any more motivation than that, roll it out. It's just been quite an incredible experience for us. Fiona had this vision of a parent-led and clinician-involved centre to raise awareness. In '92, it was just prior to the Hib vaccine. There were no vaccines. Ash was an unvaccinated child in '89 when she got sick. So it was all about raising awareness of meningitis and the early signs and symptoms, to educate the public on what to do and to do when it's suspected and what the possible outcomes can be, and to assist with lobbying the WA state government on the funding of the approaching Hib vaccine. And we created a campaign called Wipe It Out. Hib was accounting for about 40% of bacterial meningitis cases at the time. Now, I'm just a parent and I've learned a lot over the time. But all that worked. The state government did fund it and it went national not long afterwards. So there's a bit of a model there for us to follow. That is the involvement of parents in their stories, an organised way, working with clinicians and health, going to government, lobbying and getting the result we wanted. And why not start in your home state? Who cares about the rest? But the beauty is that within a federation, often the rest are looking and will take it up as a lead. So I think don't forget you have that power in your home place. In our group at the time, there was my wife Jen, the Parrys, the Parkers, the Johnsons, and since we've picked up the Dansies and others, we've all experienced kids who are now in their 30s or close to it, who contracted either Hib, meningococcal, pneumococcal. So we had a nice blend, and we were working with CDC representatives here and also people from the Telethon Research Institute, Deb Lehman and others who were with us. I'll mention a few people in a moment. And I became chair 6 months after it was born. Fiona and I launched it in April, and I was chair promoted to chair in October, and I'm still chair. But I think I'm the best guy to lead it as well. And there's no queue of people wanting to replace me. But in that time, we've travelled a lot. This hasn't been an experience I carry as a burden. We've travelled the world, we've taken the opportunity, we travelled Australia, taken Ash with us and our other two daughters, but to encourage other families to speak up, to show that life can go on. We had our third daughter, well, meant to be a son, but turned out to be another daughter after Ash, and show that even though you have a setback, if you're planning on having 3 kids, have 3 kids. It can be done. Interesting, when I speak at ASVAC and other conferences through Asia in a previous capacity, I'd always be referred to, introduced as, and being given plaques with Professor Dr. Bruce on them. And I thought, I'm not a professor or a doctor. It didn't make any difference the number of times I spoke that truth. And I knew why it was just Bruce, because Langoulant in Asia is just impossible. It's never going to happen, right? So if you don't mind, I'll be Professor Dr. Bruce today, because I think I fit in well with the standard of the people in the audience. But my experience through Ash's encounter with pneumococcal meningitis on Christmas in 1989, and she was 6 months old, and this is the classic, has been my learning ground. I haven't gone to any uni or anything. I've just learnt from the hard end, unfortunately. And Ash lives with us. She's 33 years old, and I'm an ageing carer wondering what our future is. So the burden of this isn't death necessarily, because sometimes that's a good outcome, easy solution to a shocking situation. The real burden is lifelong disability and the impact it has on society and families and ageing carers, and a crazy NDIS in some spaces. Now Ash is 24/7 dependent. She can't walk, talk or hear. She has cerebral palsy and epilepsy. She's incontinent. She has no clue as to what television is, what a clock is, the sun coming up, going down. She's very routine oriented. She's a great, beautiful 33-year-old woman like her sisters, but just needs total care. That disability spin got me involved in being the state's chair of the Disability Services Commission Board here for 15 years. I was replaced 12 months ago. I wanted to stay, but the minister didn't want me to. And that's fine. Regeneration is a good thing. But over the 21 years I was on that board, I travelled the state seeing people affected by disability and how they live with it. And I could speak to anybody at any time because I'd been in it from a child of 6 months through to 33 years of age. And so I'd seen just about any aspect you can talk about except being old and having an older child, which is my fear. Part of that journey was invited to speak at a conference in Surrey in 2004, where a collection of organisations like ours were invited to come and talk collectively. And out of that, I encouraged them with 2 or 3 other people to set up the Confederation of Meningitis Organisations internationally. We started off with 20 members. Today we have 75 members like us across the globe. I was its inaugural chair. We based it out of Perth, ran it here from 2009 to 15, and then succession planned it to Bristol, where it sits in Meningitis Research Foundation today. So a good idea in the right hands doesn't have to stop and start again. You can succession plan these good ideas to benefit others. We're succession planning Meningitis Centre Australia right now. New team, same board, restructuring the board. Why do you have to learn everything again? And that happens too much in our society. Just a comment and observation over years. So our 30 years, we've achieved a lot. So my brief to our people is we're not starting from scratch, we're starting from a base of 30 years. So let's leap forward from that with all we've learned. Over that time, I'd like to just acknowledge, I don't know whether people online who I'm going to acknowledge or in the audience, but this list of people have been inspirational to me and worked with me, and they're all on your side of the fence. So Michael Nissen, Peter Richmond, Robert Boy, Paul Van Binder, Deb Lehman, Tony Kyle, Paul Armstrong, Paul Effler, Jag Gill, Tony Watson, Michael Watson, Carolyn Gill, Robin Gibbs, all state health departments and ministers, and all our friends at, in the old days, Wyeth and Baxter, Novartis, and more recently Pfizer and GSK. We have enduring relationships with all those people, and we can learn a lot from them. And it goes on today. As I say, why ruin a good thing? I'm trying to go forward, and I'll just ask the boys to play a little video if they could. I've got one here which we produced in 2000. Volume up, lights down if we can. So we would start conferences, discussions with this video. I took this video to Surrey as one example of things we use apart from words to raise the profile of meningitis as an issue. It ended up being used in the US and other places. I think I've now lost my spot. Hang on. That's going the wrong way, righto. Give me a sneak preview of what's coming up. Can you get me back here, anybody? Oh, yeah. Oh, got close, didn't I? Thanks, mate. Great, yep, cool. Right. So in '89, in the early days, it was all about awareness raising because the vaccine scene was pretty light on. We obviously introduced the Hib vaccine here in WA in '93, and that made a huge difference, as you all know, but it left pneumo and meningo still out there. So awareness raising was still basic tours for us, and it still is today, actually, because people could still die from it. So even though they're vaccinated. We took on the pneumo project, which was near and dear to our heart, and I'll show you some elements of that in a moment. And in more recent times, we've been and successfully campaigned for the ACWY vaccine in WA with success as well. Now, the thing I wanted to introduce here was the change equation. Now, the change equation has been taken out of the pneumo campaign, which we ran from 2001 to 2004. And the component parts that made it work, when you're stepping back and looking at it, were the parent-patient advocate stories, actively working with health experts, professionals, researchers and others to give the evidence, to combine to get key opinion leaders, politicians, and media and others to pay attention to this real body of evidence, which isn't just made up by researchers, not saying made up in the nicest way, but is actually driven by cases, numbers, families impacted. It became a supercharged thing. I reckon that by adding the parent-patient advocates, you're not actually adding a plus sign, you're adding a propeller to this whole thing, and actually starts to move it because media pick up on it, turn it into a front page story, onto the 7 o'clock news. And it also assists to raise questions of their politicians in their constituent areas. So it starts the thing turning, and it's great fodder for opposition parties. So one of the key things for us and therefore you create the opportunity for change. And as I say here, it was born around logic opens the mind and emotion opens the checkbook, and elections are important. So timing is important. Coupled together with a healthy dose of persistence and relationship building from the grassroots in concert with expert input from many in this audience or online, and creating public interest. So a lot of this people are totally unaware of, other than if it knocks on your door. So we created, I was encouraged by a visit from Wyeth and their PR company in 2001, and they were persistent around the point, are you sure you want to get involved in this? It will be long and it could get a bit twitchy, right? And I said, of course I do. Anyway, we did, and it did go for a while, 2001 to 2004. We called it Operation Free Pneumo, and it was about engaging others in seeking government funding for the pneumococcal vaccine for children in Australia. And engage others we did. We had our people, the stories, we had media professionals, we had Fiona and others working with us. And, okay, right at you. There we go. Coupled with this young guy and his daughter, and our brochure, we wrote to every politician and got letters back from a lot. We got a lot on side. I ended up visiting Tony Abbott on 2 occasions. I got there because we were working with the opposition, and he said, I better talk to you then, so he did. Mark Latham was in there at the time. We obtained the support of the media. Had a lot of push from the ABC and Kerry O'Brien. families hadn't brought their pneumo-affected kids out up to this point, and there turned out to be quite a lot, and it influenced a lot of discussion. And of course, there was the problem with the cost of it all. We went to Parliament with $100. There's Julia Gillard in the bottom shot, so she was opposition spokesperson. We had free pneumo shirts, wrote open letters to the Prime Minister. This is all over 3 years, building momentum. It had another death, unfortunately, young Nathan. And ultimately, Abbott signs off on $178 million for the vaccine plan to be added. I got a phone call from the ABC in May saying, "Have you heard the news?" And I said, "No, but tell me," and it was a great day. Interestingly too, that change equation we took to COMO, the Confederation, and if you're at ESPID recently, the COMO change equation through Elena, who's one of our crew, was on show there and is being followed in a number of places. In 2016, we used the same equation here locally. There's an election coming up. I went and saw John Day, who's the health minister. We had Roger Cook, who's now the premier. Saw him as opposition health spokesperson. I said to John, ultimately, just give me a number and I'll tell people how many kids have to have W and Y before you'll do something. We've got to get to 48, everyone. Anyway, I got a phone call on a Sunday saying, "We're going to do it. Would you do a joint press conference with us?" Where do I go? A year later, so they lost the election, unfortunately. Labor's in, and I went to Roger and I said, "Roger, we need the other part to be covered off on this. You were with me while I was pushing on John. How about we do this one?" No, in other language. And they rang me and subsequently said, "We'll do that as well." So we have it covered here, and they both went national after that. Stuff has to start.
We are starting off a meningococcal vaccination program on a statewide basis.
Oh, okay, I'll take that. That was pretty good, actually. So that was the press release, which I don't have time for now. But our journey continues. As I say here, we see and meet many who get meningitis and septicemia as they contact our centre from across Australia. We don't see the many thousands we've helped to protect. Good thing. But we know from our lived experience why we do what we do. And today we also know that 300,000 kids born each year get the best blanket of protection available, and we've had our hands in most of it. And we're currently working on Men B, so watch out, governments. We've actually started 2 years ago, and we'll have a bit of momentum down the East Coast. So the numbers are helping us, but they're still not disturbing enough to disturb some people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can take some questions from the audience. Have we got any questions? So I was just looking up some of the health ministers, and I remember, I think it was Senator Richardson who was the one who introduced it, but he spent 9 months before introducing it saying he's never going to introduce it, or it's not going to be on the free list. Was that about the time you were talking about? Was it Graham Richardson who was?
No, it was Tony Abbott. You're talking about pneumo? Or HIB?
Yeah, I thought, no, pneumo, wasn't it?
Pneumo was Tony Abbott.
Yeah, he was the health minister.
Yeah, it was Liberal was in, and Tony wasn't easy. He was. He said to me, "I've got so many hands coming out to me, all with reasonable propositions for other things other than pneumococcal vaccine." And I saw him twice, and ultimately, I think it's us making that appearance with the opposition saying, "If we win government, we'll do it." And then the Libs said, "We'll do it." So you just need that. You need both. You need to be working both sides.
And why do you think the Men B is not making it through? Is it the cost, or is it just the resistance?
Yeah, I think part of it's probably the cost. They think they've done enough for meningococcal disease with the ACWY. The numbers aren't as bad as they used to be, or I know they're on the rise. They're obviously accentuated because the ACWY vaccine is working really well, so B is starting to go here, but year to date it's ahead of last year. So even so, it's growing. And it might be another example of what number do we need, before you'll do something, But we've got families in Queensland at the moment we're working with who've lost 22, 23-year-olds. Bella has just lost recently, and others. It needs more people to share those stories, to create the pressure to, and we need a state like South Australia. Another one, if Queensland does it, or maybe Roger might do it because he's here, you know. We need another state to jump in, I think.
Internationally, do you have any particular country that you think has got the formula right as part of their advocacy, looking at your international group?
I think the UK is pretty good. I think we're pretty good. We've been doing it 30 years, and some of the ones in the UK have been doing it slightly longer. But we're, as Fiona said to me once, I think we're better than them. I don't know why that is, but I think it is because it's parent-led, more strongly parent-led here. And see, parents have jobs too. You know, I was in financial advice, and I was counselling people on all sorts of things, and my daughter got sick. So I was connected. So we need connected parents. They're not just parents of kids with disability. They're actually talented people, and they need to get active. And that's the thing that really is an understated asset that we have. And so it needs a bit of that, come on guys, we can do this. And you need a leader though to do that.
Slightly off topic, but maybe the same. Is NDIS a help to as an advocacy group, or is it bogged down? Like, is it a key support program, and do you think it's helped?
If you've got a child with a disability, the NDIS is definitely a plus. But if you're not a talented, persistent person by nature, the NDIS is a nightmare. Money isn't the solution. Money is a tool. But if you're not connected, if your son or daughter is unique and different, if you're in remote areas, mate, it is a problem. It is a problem. Now listen, I was chair of the commission here before, in the old system, transitioning to the new system, and I told them right at the start, you're going to have a review this in 5 years because you don't even know what you're talking about. A lot of the people, sorry, if you've been recorded, you can repeat me. A number of the people I was talking to had no experience in disability, and they were making the big decisions. So I said, well, you just don't know. You know? And we're having a review. And they're making disability look like people in wheelchairs, which is a real worry. Talented people in wheelchairs. No, that's not disability. Disability is people with intellectual disability who need caring for. The unfortunate thing is the people, the able disabled, are outnumbering the truly disabled. And the truly disabled don't have a voice, and they're invisible. So we got a problem. You're going to have ageing carers looking after these people, and that's a problem.
And I think the question that came is about is the fact that you've got disabled people who need support a cost thing that is helping governments maybe make a decision, but you don't think they get it? It's too far away, different pocket of money, and
different bucket.
And the advice for other vaccines that are coming through about advocacy for new shingles vaccine or the best. It's consumer groups and the power of individuals.
Yeah, we're really pro-vaccine. I'm now 71, right? So I live what I talk. So I've had the shingles vaccines, I've had the 2 pneumo vaccines, and I've been part of the ageing vaccine story too, and conferences. And so it's the old life course immunisation theory. I don't know why we stop. You know, it's a bit like, and people come back to it, then they leave it. So I think it needs ordinary people to say it's a good idea to some degree. You know?
Okay, that's the end of my question. So thank you very much for helping us think this through.
My pleasure.
And thank you for your advice.
Thank you.